Well, hello there, friends. Thank you for joining Rob and I. My name is Brian Cumming. This is the 6th online coaching session I've hosted, and it looks like it should be the busiest so far. What are we at now? 41. Perfect. I think that is the busiest already. I am super grateful to have seen so many different faces staring back at me over the past 6 weeks, and so many of those same faces staring back at me now. It's awesome. And this class is a little thank you from us to you. Super glad Rob could be here, and more so that SunPath pay him a modest salary so that this class is free for you. Everyone likes free stuff, right? And welcome to all the new people too. There's a bunch of names that I didn't recognize. Brilliant. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining. I'm glad you could be here. I have to mute myself. I've just spilt my drink. There we go. It's a self-solving problem, water. Welcome to all the new people. Glad you're here. Hopefully over the next 60 minutes or so, you'll learn something and you enjoy yourself. Maybe consider attending future classes, or if tonight's class whets your appetite, you can always grab previous classes at the same place you got this one. Seeing as we're starting to get back into jumping, I'm not sure if there will be sufficient demand for that many more in the future, but we'll see. The next two are confirmed already though, and I'll cover those briefly at the end. I'm very excited. Should be good ones. There will be a feedback form emailed out later tonight. And if you could let me know your thoughts about the future of these classes, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. Over the past 6 weeks, we have raised money for Trees for the Future. 50% of any donations for this class go straight to them. So far, for the entire 6 weeks, so far we've raised enough to plant approximately 5,500 trees. Chris from Visionary introduced the charity to me, and his hashtag that he came up with is One Jump, One Tree. And when you consider that it's $10 to plant 100 trees, that seems like something we can help make happen. If you do 200 jumps a year, that's $20 for 200 trees. Let's do it. Okay, active speaker view, perfect. We are super grateful for the companies who have offered us some giveaways during tonight's class. SunPath Products have offered us 20% off either a Javelin, the comfiest rig I've ever worn, I promise you, or their Aurora, the harnessing container designed especially for wingsuiting. There's a SunPath t-shirt on offer. Symbiosis, thank you to Haley. They've got a 20% off voucher for an instructor jumpsuit, and we've got a Visionary t-shirt too. The winners will be chosen at random. I have the order in which you signed up to this class printed out here. And everyone has been assigned a number. I'll bring up a random number generator on the screen, and I guess, do you feel lucky? Well, do you? We plan to run this at the very start of the Q&A, and we'll take a group photo immediately after the draw. So at the start of the Q&A, be prepared to have a t-shirt on, although trousers not required. I'm laughing because we called people out a couple of weeks ago. Okay, rules for this evening. We've got 60 minutes and we're aiming to finish on time, approximately. I know a few of you have places to go and things to do, GoPros to charge and jump documents to find. As the Zoom meeting host, I've selected that only myself and Rob can unmute people. Bear with us, but the content is why you're here, so we want to avoid distractions. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Feel free to type your question in the chat function, and your question will be one of the first to be answered. It would be great if you could put it in the shared chat so everyone can see it. If you're thinking it, someone else is likely thinking it too. Anything sent privately will be assumed to be anonymous though. Cool. We're here today to hear Rob Kendall speak. He is, can you guys see that okay? Is that, yeah, that should work, right? You guys can all see the, Rob nod at me. You can see the little square picture. Yep, cool, perfect. I had some issues with it last week, learning how to use 2 screens, techie things. We're here today to hear Rob Kendall speak. He is the European SunPath Products rep, and they sell the Javelin container and the wingsuit specific Aurora, as I mentioned earlier. They've also recently agreed to buy rigging innovations, so they'll be offering the curved container in the future too. Rob has been jumping for a while now, jumping since 2000. He has close to 5,000 jumps. He doesn't actually know, but he thinks it's between 4,500 and 5,500. He's mainly known on the European boogie scene as an FS load organizer. He spent 7 years being the marketing manager for Cyprus. Then 3 years, why haven't we got a t-shirt from Cyprus, dude? Then 3 years as DZ manager at Bad Lipspringer, the British military drop zone that was in Germany until it closed in 2017. And then he's been with SunPath ever since. Rob always has a massive smile on his face, apart from when I'm reading out introductions, and he's known for his fun style of being a load organizer. He pays way more attention to his dives than his logbook, and the people who jump with him have a great time, and his cheeky chappy persona mean he is very good at talking in public. Bear with him, he literally downloaded Zoom this afternoon, so he's on a very steep learning curve. He's here today to discuss the 9 things you need to know about buying secondhand kit. Yes, that number has changed a couple of times actually. It was 13, then it grew to 14, but we were able to consolidate in our rehearsal this afternoon. So now it's 9. 9's your number. Okay. Sweet. Who is that? Cool. Rob, thank you very much for being here today and sharing your expert knowledge with us. Thank you to SunPath Products for allowing this event to be free. How's the jumping in Germany been this past month, my friend?
You just wanted to, I just had a notification that you wanted to unmute me. So now it's my turn to talk. First of all, just before I get into that, thank you, Brian, for having me. Something like this or the web seminars or whatever they're called, there's something new to me. I've seen over the last couple of weeks that they're definitely expanding, and there seems to be a place for it at the moment. Yours I've followed, and I love the way that you're doing it, and I'm very happy to be here. So thank you very much for inviting me. Just on the whole COVID situation here in Germany, I was talking just before everybody started joining in. I think Germany's been pretty lucky insofar as it's got at least a 2 or 3 week head start on the UK. So that's kind of, the lockdown was a couple of weeks beforehand. So we've been jumping for the last 3 weeks. Different drop zones have opened slowly. In Germany have opened one after another. Having some distancing ruling and wearing face masks. But apart from that, everybody's coping, everybody's playing along, and we're jumping. The weather's been great, so can't really complain. Are you looking at me or looking at your notes? Can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. You're on mute. There we go. So
I can hear you. We've just had a few people try and sign up in the last few minutes, so bear with me.
Yeah.
Rob, if you want to start talking.
Okay, will do. The reason why I quite like this particular subject or the secondhand gear is that my exposure to it twice was pretty bad. Now, if I'm being honest, the reason that both of these experiences weren't the best was mostly to do with me. When I was younger, I was pretty impatient. I wanted everything straight away, and I missed a lot of the triggers, the warning signs of maybe saying, "Hey, stop, have a look at this, take your time." But if it was a deal, it was cheap. I wanted it straight away. I kind of glanced over the 2 secondhand rigs that we'll get into in a second, and now I get to reflect on that a little bit more. And it sort of turned around, and I said to myself, "Geez, a lot of the stuff that I just took as granted could have gone wrong." So hopefully, during the course of this webinar, we can go through some of the pointers, the mistakes that I made, and things to look at now that I'm working for a manufacturer and getting having that little bit more insight, knowledge into it, or being able to provide you guys or all of you with some tips, some tricks, if you're looking at secondhand gear, whether it be containers, or some of these tips and tricks might actually apply to other stuff as well. So I just want to have a bit of a disclaimer in there. A lot of these tips that we're going to work through, they're based off my SunPath knowledge. So SunPath containers, the system, behind the scenes, what we use at the manufacturer or at the factory. We have some methods that would be able to help or will help when we look into secondhand gear itself. So I apologize if it's very SunPath heavy. A lot of these pointers can be used with other manufacturers as well. You just have to figure out if they do or not. So, Brian, before I jump into my stories, did we want to have a look at the question you wanted to pose, or did you already do that with the chat? Can't hear you.
This is something different. So brilliant. People who've been regulars, they know what's about to happen now. A little group exercise. People that take responsibility and think for themselves in skydiving often last the longest in this sport. Everyone needs to be able to calculate risks, understand them, and reduce them if they can. So in the essence of trying to get people to think for themselves, I'm going to split you all into small groups of 3, okay? You and 2 other people chosen at random by the software. You've got 2 minutes to say hi, just 2 minutes to say hi very quickly. And I want you to discuss the things that you want to know, that you would want to know about any secondhand kit you'd buy in the future. What would you want to know? Come up with 3 or 4 that you're happy to share with the group. When you come back, stick your ideas in the chat function. Maybe nominate someone who can type quickly. If your group is rubbish at typing, or you just have small screens, we might have time for 2, maybe 3 people to talk as well. So if that's you, raise your hand if you are the team's nominated spokesperson, and you will have 20 seconds to share your group's ideas. But we do prefer a typed answer, please. Quick summary. 1, say hi. 2, discuss the things you'd want to know about buying secondhand kit. 3, pick a few of the best ones and get ready to share them. And go. Okay, everyone should be back in the room. Everyone should be back now. Perfect. Okay, back in the room. For anybody on the catch-up video recording, we have just been in breakout rooms the past 2 minutes. So what has everyone got? Who's going to type 1 that no one else gets? What do you want to know about buying secondhand kit? Stick it in the chat. If you do want to talk out loud, raise your hand now, and you'll have 20 seconds to say what your group said. Anybody got their hand up? Rob, what's it say in the chat? Alice wants to talk. Go on then, Alice.
Really fast.
Good. Hang on, Rob. Shush you. Alice,
Okay.
what did your group come up with?
So whether you can get replacement parts for the gear and whether it's still made, because I lost a free bag for an old Mirage and they don't make them anymore. So it's now worth nothing.
Ouch.
Yeah. So I think that's an unusual one, maybe.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, anybody else got their hand up? Just going to check the second screen. No more hands up, just a touch of the nose. Stop touching your face, everybody. Sweet, so let's have a look at the chats.
I'll read some of these out.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Okay, let me go. Is there something specific to know about second-hand helmets? Wrong webinar, I think, isn't there?
Well, let's say kit generally, so we might.
Oh, okay, yeah, we can touch on that. Is it safe? Has it been repaired? By who? What? When? Okay, I like that. Are we answering them as we're going along?
No, just reading them out.
Okay, just reading them out, and then if we don't touch on it through the webinar, then afterwards maybe in the questions.
Absolutely, but you're the font of all knowledge, Rob, so everything will be covered, I'm sure.
Availability of gear, spare parts. Good question. Good price for the kit. Well-known brand, safe. Does it fit? Is it comfortable? Age of kit. How much wear and tear? Has it been checked by a rigger? Does it fit?
Yeah, from Haley and Potter, where has it been jumped? Is the drop zone sandy or hot? I like that a lot.
So our room was denied the difference between 7 and 9 cells and container size. We'll touch on container size as well. What are the most common mistakes people make buying secondhand gear? All you have to do is listen to my 2 stories. That pretty much covers all the mistakes you can make. Our group has been keen to understand what questions we should be asking about secondhand rig history and what is important, not just the height of seller. I like that. I like that a lot.
Ollie Stocks has come up with compatibility with other gear, the canopies especially, range of adjustment, how well it fits, and ability to try on or try out the gear. Fabrizio said, in a second, stop.
Oh, sorry, if I move it, do you move it?
I think it's no, as more comes in, it scrolls up. What is outdated and what is potentially dangerous? Are there any issues for the manufacturer? Basically, you're relying on people's honesty as to the history of the kit. Any history of the kit, fit of the kit, built for what size. He's got some good, unique ones. Okay, Mikhail's got a question for later. Where has it been jumped before and by how many people? Is it the right canopy for your experience? Main and reserve? Main and reserve. Yes, I like that a lot. All things canopy value related. Is it the right color? Absolutely. Got no free bag, but it's the right color. And what's the safe life expectancy of reserve rigs? Okay, cool. Rob, I think we've had a decent bunch there, mate.
Yes.
If you want to crack on. Rob's got 9 things you need to know about buying secondhand kit. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to touch on first is my 2 experiences with buying secondhand containers. The first experience I had, I must have had maybe 250 to 300 jumps. And I was on the drop zone, and I was in the market, but at the drop zone I was at, we could rent the student gear. It wasn't too expensive, so just waiting for the right opportunity to come along. Somebody at the drop zone had a Javelin for sale, and this guy was 5'7", maybe. That should have been the first warning signs. I'm 5'11". The container itself was quite small. Everything I wanted a small looking container. I wanted something right away. The price was pretty good. It was a complete container. The price was good. I just wanted it there and then. I put it on. I squeezed myself into this container, thinking it would be fine. It's not a problem. You know, it's a little bit tight. The leg straps, they didn't do all the way up. All the way through, all the way around. So my comfy pads weren't even meeting, but still I was young, I was fit, I could cope with that. That wasn't a problem. Now I've got a complete system. I think, let's say 800 euros. What's that? 600 pounds, or was 600 pounds, around about that ballpark. I've got a complete container. I don't need anything else. It works. I put it on, I do the chest strap up. I think fantastic. I go up, I jump out, I deploy. The canopy does something really weird, and all of a sudden I've got 6 or 7 twists in there. I'm racing towards the ground on a canopy that's, let's say, a little bit too small for me. I'm thinking to myself, okay, reserve drills. I'm looking for my handles. They've shifted. It's a pretty sweaty experience the whole way down. I come down under the reserve. I land. The guy that's selling me the rig is actually running towards me, and he's going, "Is everything okay?" And I'm thinking, I'm sat down, I'm thinking, what just happened? It took me a couple of moments. I had a couple of reserve beforehand, so it wasn't too bad on the actual opening of the reserve, but I really sat down and said, right, okay, what just happened? Got everything together, went back in, had a look at the cause of the malfunction. So right there, the brake line coming from the top of the canopy down wasn't routed through the slider. So on the opening, I had a brake fire. All of a sudden, this brake fire is not caught. It just flew away. But that happening on opening caused the whole canopy to turn, make a complete mess of itself, and I couldn't recover. So I had to use my reserve procedures. So I'm already there. We're already thinking about not doing a decent pre-jump gear check. Maybe from him, I don't know how long he had that gear in his car, or he's been traveling around wanting it to sell it. So would have been a good idea maybe to do a new pack of the main container on there. When fitting it on, I was so keen to want to buy this container that I didn't think about, you know, does it fit correctly? Is it going to be uncomfortable? What about my handles? So all this and more, which we'll cover in some of the points that we're going on later, it just already gives you an idea of how it could be, how it can go wrong from getting yourself that first second-hand set of gear. Now, after that terrible mistake, I still bought it because I didn't learn. I got myself some bigger leg pads on there. So I managed to get in touch with SunPath and send over some leg pads, put them on there, and it did what it was supposed to do, but it wasn't very comfortable. So move on, maybe 1 or 2 years, I'm finally finding out that it's not as comfortable as I think it is, and maybe I should be looking at something else. I remember being in America and being at a drop zone, and somebody was walking around in Arizona, actually, somebody was walking around with a container that had 60 jumps on there. It was from an old sponsor, or sorry, from a sponsored guy that had got the container, then stopped jumping, and this container was for sale. Now I'm thinking, know what you guys are thinking. I'm not going to make the same mistake of buying a too small a container. You're right. I'm not going to make the mistake of buying a too small a container. I put this container on. It's too big for me. It's built for somebody that's 6'2" and obviously goes out to the gym a lot more than I do. So this thing is moving around all over the place. But I think to myself, hey, it can't be any worse than having a container that's too small for you. So the guy says $500. I say sold. So now I got rid of the smaller container and I've got myself a container that's too big for me. Again, too eager, wanting it straight away, wanting something else. This had comfy pads. My old one didn't. This had a nice ventilated back pad. It looked good. It was orange, white, and black. The design was brilliant, really nice. So, you know, you can take into account what's it too big, doesn't matter, just a little bit loose, that's all. So you can kind of guess where I'm going with this. I took it back. I got the reserve put in there, got the main put in there, got it on, strapped it down. It was okay. On opening, it shook around a little bit, and I did now and again worry about my arm falling out because it was that big and sort of folding over my shoulders, but still fine. Where it became a problem was when I was starting to learn to fly on my back, so backtracking. And I was getting better and better, but now and again I'd be flying on my back, and all of a sudden I'd either turn right or I'd turn left. And I thought it was just body position until somebody was below me and filming, and then all of a sudden they saw or showed me the video afterwards, and what was happening is the container was so loose that the air was coming around the back, and all of a sudden the whole container was either moving left or it was moving right and pushing my body at the same time. Okay, that was kind of the first sort of idea where you're saying it might be a little bit too big. A couple of jumps later, doing the same thing, I turn around, I deploy, maybe a little bit too quick, start spinning up. I can't find the cutaway handles, the reserve handles, because all of a sudden they're not where they're supposed to be. Instead of them being a bit lower down, they're right up here at the top here. So it gave me a bit of a scare. After that one, I've got to say, after it happening twice, I finally learned, and I got myself a custom-made container. So they're my two stories. The reasons why I think this is pretty important when you're looking at secondhand gear, but also I pretty much made all the mistakes you could make. So I'm hoping with this, we'll be able to go through a little bit. So without a further ado, my number one top tip is the serial number of the container. With the serial number of the container, you will be able to find out most of the information without even reading the rest of the post of the person that's put it up for sale. So some of the chats were in there, if you wouldn't, the height of the previous owner, the size, the shape, the weight. It's still very difficult because if you look at my size or my body frame and maybe then look at the body frame of Brian, I think we're about the same size, but I'm pretty sure that our containers, I'm a little bit shorter. We're roughly the same size, but my frame was a little bit wider than Brian's. So I think because he jumps as a Javelin as well, I think he has a different sized harness than I do. So with Brian putting an ad in the online or in a magazine, 5'10", 11, weight, it's not going to be the same. So from a serial number, what we can get is the following information. I'm just going to put this onto a screen. I'm trying to push up share screen. There we go. And share. So we have a look now. This is the location of the serial number and further information tuck tab. I'm not quite sure what we call this, but it has a lot of information on there. So we'll go with a serial number tuck tab. On the newer Javelins, it's situated behind the warning label. So I think you guys can see my mouse, the arrow. So from the top, finger in, pull it out. With some of the other containers, I think Vector, it's at the bottom where you can sort of stick your finger up and then pull it down around. if we go on to some of the older Javelins, the serial number tuck tab is located under the reserve flap. So where my finger is there, you can just sort of in between there, you can stick your finger up there, pull down the tab, and you'll see the same information. Some other containers, they actually have them in the ring covers. So again, where my thumb is there, just sort of stick your finger up there and pull down the tuck tab that's on there. So if we're looking at the serial number tuck tab, we see the size of the container, which in this case is a DNKY, and the size of the harness that's on there. Also, we see, which is relevant, the date of manufacturer and the serial number. So with this already, with the serial number that we have there and the container size, we already from this point know what canopies are made for this container. The harness sizing is difficult to explain. Tom and I did a seminar at the BPA, and I think we spent an hour there, mostly me looking at Tom and Tom doing his magic. He's one of our chief engineers at SunPath, and he really is the guy that knows the in and outs of how the system, the harness sizing system works. I unfortunately do not. So there's Tom and I, and there we are going through this. I think this is the only time that I have the microphone in my hand, otherwise Tom is talking through it. Now, I think towards the, or at the end of the webinar, what we'll do is we'll get all the YouTube videos, and I think Brian's going to collate them in a notes for everybody to click on and watch the whole thing. So let me just click out of that. I don't know how to do it. I may require help. Hang on, stop share.
Rob, you okay?
There we go. Yeah, got it, boom. Nice. So what we had to look there was the location of the serial tuck tab and the fact that I was saying about the serial number being the most important part, I feel, of any advert that's on there. Why? Now, a lot of the manufacturers, if you write them an email and send them the serial number, they will be able to answer quite a lot of questions for you. They will be able to answer you the ideal fit of containers that are in there. They will be able to give you the measurements of the harness, of the person it was built for. If it hasn't been, hang on, what word I'm looking for, if the harness hasn't had any adjustments in there, or if it's not older than 2001. If it is older than 2001, SunPath still have the records, but they're in paper form. So that could take a little bit longer, as you can imagine, sifting through the papers, trying to find the right serial number to get that information to you. But for the most part, I know that we do it, is that we answer quite a few emails per day that just ask or send us a serial number and ask for the measurements that we have on there. So once you have these measurements, sorry, for the serial number, once you have this information, you can then start looking forward for yourself. You've already decided for yourself what container size, or sorry, what canopies are you going to be jumping in your new container. And of course, the harness, you would like that to be closest fit as possible for you before you even entertain the idea of paying for shipping to get it across, or having to have somebody bring it down all the way from wherever that container is to test jump. So, sorry, I'm just using my little cheat sheet here just to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. So what I see quite a few times in a ad is that it has a reserve 143 and it has a 150 canopy in there. Now, that is what the seller is telling you what they have in their container. It doesn't necessarily mean it is the correct canopy for that container. So I can have a container that is built for a 120, and at a push, I could probably fit a 150 in there. Now, it's not correct, but you don't know that. First of all, if you're a younger jumper or a less experienced jumper, then you might just think, okay, you're trusting what this guy's saying or what the girl's saying, and you get this container and you don't really see anything wrong with it. But already from the sizing that we have and from the serial number, we can tell you exactly what canopies fit in there. Let's take an example. What have we got? So I have a J1KL, which fits a 170. SunPath allows one size down, but not one size up. So you can put a 150 in that size container and you'd still be within our recommendations. 170, 150 is what fits in there for a main canopy for this size container. But you can put a 135 in there, and this is where it starts getting a little tricky. It becomes, then you're having to think too far ahead, and there's a lot of things that you have to think about before you even got this container to you. So without me rattling on too much, I feel like I need a little drink break. We'll see. If I just move over to share screen. Did I put the right one up? I don't think so. Bear with me, guys. Sorry. Let's try that again. There we go. So we talked about the serial number that was on there, and from the serial number, you could email us and we can give you the container sizing, we can give you the measurements that were taken for the original owner of that system. But you can also use online, you can use our canopy compatibility chart. Here as well, you've seen the serial tuck tab, and you saw on the side there that we had the DNKY. So from here, you can see what size reserve, low bulk or normal F111 reserves in there, and what canopies fit in there also. So this gives you that little bit of peace of mind when you're looking at an advert, that you're then being able to cross-check with our website, with what we have on there, to make sure that you're already in that ballpark area of the equipment that you need. Also, what we provide on our website is a harness measurements. So what I would be looking at as well is to say, okay, so I'm going to be looking for a container online. So I'm just going to talk about the online example. I'm going to be looking for a container there as well. I know what canopies I want in there. The sizing wise, before I start looking into the sizing of a container that I would like to purchase, what are my sizes? What sizes do I need to be looking at? Now, I can say to myself, I can say, oh, look, I'm 5'11". I don't know my inseam. I don't really know my waist size. So this would be information that I'd be wanting to find out before, writing down, and then being able to cross-check that, as you will, with adverts or with other containers that I see. Especially if I'm sending an email out, it'd be really easy just to check off each measurement that I receive from the manufacturer with my own measurements that I have. So we provide a guide on how to measure. It's about 5 measurements. It's pretty easy to be done. And here on our website, again, it'll be put down into the notes. It's pretty easy just to watch the video and then find out the measurements afterwards. On a bit of a side note, when we are looking at an ad on online, we're looking at the options as well. So as I was telling you beforehand, the pricing that we have, or the pricing that comes with it, was one of the main factors of me saying, yes, I want it. If I'm being pretty honest, I do not know what options were on there. I could see it had articulation. I wasn't even sure if it had an RSL on there. So looking through, if I'm going to be paying X amount for a container, what has it got in there for me? Has it got comfy pads? Does it have a back pad? Does it have an RSL? Does it have articulation? It's things like that that if I look at it from my point of view, I was too quick. I was too quick just to say, yeah, take my money, I'll have the container. And now I'd probably be looking back and going, okay, this price that I'm paying for it, how much would this container cost if it was brand new? If I was to go onto the website, onto a manufacturer's website, I was to fill out an order form and I put everything of my, what I would like, my dream container, how much is that going to cost me? And then when I have that price, I can say, okay, to myself, I'd say, no, that's too expensive for now. But then how much am I prepared to pay? If I then go bargain hunting, or I go onto different websites, which I'm using for most of my, my reflections on this, if I'm going onto a website and I say, right, okay, how much is that container worth? Does it have articulation on there? Does it have the skyhook on there? Does it have the comfy additions on there as well? Because sometimes you can find, if you see a container that's 2 years old, that the pricing isn't that much different to what that container plus its current options would be. So I also find that that's sometimes I'm looking when I'm browsing, I see containers, I'm going, that's not far off a new price for it. So what I'm saying with that is have a look at that container, look at the options that it has. Is it worth that price that it's asking for as secondhand? I wish I'd known this before. If I were to buy a secondhand container now, and I went through the process of trying it on, test jumping it, or even let's step back from the test jumping. Let's go at the pre-jumper, the checking it over, having it in my hands, having the serial number right into the manufacturer. It's the right, it has the right canopy configuration. I'm happy with that. But the harness, I've asked them for the details, the harness sizing. I've matched them with mine, and they're way off. Well, I didn't know this. Might be new for you guys as well, but a manufacturer can actually adjust the harness. I mean, it sounds weird, but I didn't know this. I now, when I'm talking about it now, I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you know? But it's possible. It's easy. They can do a complete reharness. It's just a question of how much do you want to pay for it. So for something like having an articulated harness and it not fitting, it might be a simple case of exchanging the main lift web, which apart from shipping it over, the actual work on there is about $150. So $150, depending on what that is, the cheapest area or the cheapest range, but it could be as simple as that, a fix of just having the main lift web changed over. And if you've got the articulation, it's not that much of a hard job for the manufacturer to do. So let's just say I'm paying 800, let's say £1,000 for the container. Now all of a sudden, all I need to pay is another 150, and I've got a really nice, comfortable fitting harness. Just blows my mind that it's so easy, but it is. So repairs, alterations, spare parts to a certain extent, depending on the age. It's something that I really didn't think about, but it's so easy. And nowadays with an email, you find out exactly what you need to do, how much it's going to cost, and you can factor that into your price of the secondhand gear. I sound amazed by that because I am. I just couldn't fathom that it would be so easy just to ask for an alteration of the harness. Would have made life so much easier. Okay, so I do realize I'm talking and going through, and I'm trying to give every point that we have as much time. If you do have things where I've jumped over or you need to understand, we'll talk about it afterwards. But we've spoken about the serial number, we've spoken about the harness sizing, we've spoken about the container sizing, we've spoken about your measurements, we've spoken about options on the container, we've spoken about repairs, adjustments to the containers. What I would like to now touch on is you've seen a container and you said to yourself, you know what, that's something that I'd like. It looks good at the moment, checking the measurements, it's okay, it's not too far. Canopies, correct, yeah, they'll fit. So the next stage is getting it to you. Let's take it that it's in head corns, the rig, and in Hibblestove, that's where it's got to be jumped. We've got to get it up there. The shipping, you get in contact with that person. How are we going to get it up to my location so I can jump it? We talk about shipping. What I would say about that is make sure you have everything talked about beforehand. Who pays for the shipping? Are you going to insure it? Do you need a third party like a rigger or maybe even the CCI on a drop zone to act as that third party to make sure that you're not just going to run off with a container, or that's what the seller may think. Getting it up there, I've had it a few times selling our demonstration gear that we have at SunPath when it comes to selling that stuff. I've had it once or twice where people have gone, yeah, just send me it, it'll be fine. And this is where I get a little bit unsettled. Okay, all of a sudden he just wants or she wants it now, just me to send it up there. Maybe offer, say, hey, I'd like to try this out. I'd like to test jump it. Are you okay with this? If yes, is the date still is the state date for the reserve still valid? Can I get it over here? Can I pay for the shipping, or will you pay for the shipping and we'll pay for it back? I'd like to just push on the fact that the way that you come across to that seller will make the difference of that person saying, yeah, no worries, I'll send it up, or yeah, not too sure whether I want to do that. When you get hold of the container, I now would get hold of that container. I'd probably go to the person, the more experienced person that I know, that I trust, a rigger, and ask them if they have time to look over the container. I don't think, and I'm trying to word this carefully. I think there are some people out there that are not as concerned with safety as you all are. And I think the best way to get past that is to have even my eye. I think I regard myself now to be quite experienced, but even now I'm not that experienced when it comes to rigging work. I'm not that experienced in finding some of the smaller details out on a container, which I believe an experienced rigger would. I have a rigger of my choice who I trust my life to every time he packs my reserve, and I think he does a bloody good job. So I'd always want to have somebody else check it over before I actually took it up for a jump. Full pre-jump check beforehand, repack of the main, and check the reserve paperwork. I have noticed it quite a lot of people being at a drop zone. If there is somebody that has a reserve, everybody casually goes over and finds out what the situation is. And more or not, it's a person jumping somebody else's container or a demo container on occasion and having a reserve because the last person that packed that main didn't really give as much effort as they should have done. So I would always suggest taking that equipment that you're looking to test jump, having a rigger check it over, checking it over yourself, giving it a good pre-jump check, and I would always pack the main myself just to be sure. When I'm then putting on that container, you see it sometimes of the tandem students. So a tandem master, are they still called masters, or are they now called instructors? So the tandem masters will now ask their student to stand up and then stand in front of them, and the tandem masters will take the weight of their harness on their shoulders as they're asking the student to go down, just to make sure that it's tight enough. I'd probably ask somebody to do that for me as well. If I can feel the container moving a little bit on my back and I'm not too sure, then I'll ask someone just to do that for me, because I want to see how much that rises. Doesn't make it impossible to jump with, but as I told you the story beforehand, it does move them reserve handles and the cutaway handle dramatically. So that's just a consideration to have. Nowadays, it's not as prevalent, but when I had the container that was too small, I could have quite easily popped my reserve, because the cable length is made for the harness size. And there as well, if I had that on my back and I really wanted to move out and sort of breathe out, I could have popped that container. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure how close I was to doing that or not. So that's another consideration when you're putting that container on. Is it too tight? Is it too loose? Where are them handles going to be? So I put that down, simulate hanging in the harness just to check handles. You don't need to make a big deal out of it. It's just these little things that will put you at more ease when you're test jumping this secondhand equipment. And you need to be in a relaxed place. You need to feel that harness when you're flying it. You need to feel your legs. You need to feel if it's tight on the shoulders, which you can't do if you're tensed up anyway. So all these little things, you got to pick the right day. You've got to probably do a solo jump on there, docile canopies in there. All these little things that I didn't do, I'm trying to push onto you guys now just to say, hey, might have been a good idea. I wish I did that. Compromises you make, but you shouldn't. I kind of put this on there because everything that I did when I brought my 2 containers were compromises that I made, but I shouldn't have. So I kind of want to maybe put that in there as the motto of why I feel that it's so important to look a little bit deeper into secondhand equipment than just give it a glance over. Compromises, what did I write? Compromises you make but shouldn't. Cost, it was a factor. The design, it looked really good. The time, I didn't have to wait for it. So these 3 things that came together were exactly the reason why I brought it when I shouldn't have. And hopefully with giving you a few ideas of methods of finding information to help you make that choice will ensure that you don't do that. That was my point 9. I'd like to have a quick sip of my drink and then maybe go on to 2 points which aren't really secondhand related but might help you a little bit. That's where my little SunPath posts come into it. So do you mind if I have a quick drink?
Rob, thank you so much for talking. You haven't quite finished, but
do you know how hard this is? This is unbelievable. Talking for so many minutes straight. It's weird.
Okay, so we're around about 8:50, 9:50 your time, Rob. Appreciate it. We've got a few things to get in. This seminar, this class is probably going to go a little bit long. Sorry about that, but hey, free content, you love it. Hopefully, if you do need to bail at 9 o'clock, by all means, do that. So I just want to run through the 9 things that you need to know about buying secondhand rigs. The first one is serial numbers. The second one is checking out the size of it. The second one is Rob, what is the difference between your
right? The 9 points. The 9 points. What did you say was the 9 points of buying a secondhand rig? Firstly, I think the most important is the serial number. So much information can be gained from the manufacturer from having that serial number. Second one, using that second point, which kind of puts in, I think the first one was the location of the serial number tab. The second one is the serial number. Measurements, you can find the container sizing from there as well. Your measurements on how to get them to be able to look at the measurements you receive from the serial number from the manufacturer and compare them with yours. Options on the container, get what you pay for.
Is number 5.
Sorry, it's number 5. Number 6, repairs, adjustment to containers. It's quite astounding how cheap it is to get your harness refitted or changed to fit you. Number 7, pre-jump. So thinking about how to get that container to you. Be nice to them, think of a plan to get it to you, to get it back to them, maybe use a third party to use as an in-between. 8, test jumping it, ideally solo jump, docile canopies, high pull, discuss with the load first, really try and enjoy that jump to think about the container and how it feels and how it fits. 9, compromises you make, but I like that. I just whip that out, and now every time I read it, I think to myself, yeah, I wish I'd done that. Compromises you make, but shouldn't. Cost, design, time. That was my 9.
Cool. Thank you very much. We're getting a few questions coming in on helmets, canopies, and other gear and stuff. That's probably my fault for calling it kits in the advertising. I should have said rigs specifically. It's primarily about secondhand rigs, this class. If we've got time, if you guys are still here, if you want to hang around in the Q&A at the end after 9 o'clock, then we will see what we can do about answering those questions really, really quickly though. Rob, your point 10 though wouldn't allow in your point 9 points.
Real quick one. So manufacturers, they have demo containers. Usually these are complete systems that after a time period, they will sell after a season, just so that they can get new ones in with the updates that are on there. So it's always worthwhile asking the road reps of container manufacturers when they're doing a turnaround in their containers. For example, SunPath will be looking at renewing their containers for the 2021 road tour. So around about latest Easter time, they'll have hopefully sold all their containers that they have. And if it doesn't take a wizard to work out that if we change them every 2 years and we haven't used them very much this year, they're probably still in very good condition, but still go for a very good price. So that was my little adding in there. And this is blatant advertising, but I'm going to do it anyway, because you haven't muted me. If you don't want to wait for a second-hand container, you can always try SunPath stock rigs. Get your container with 5 to 7 weeks, brand new, in certain color frames, and with all the other options that you would want for a customized, comfortable container. Did that work? Was that good enough?
Yeah, that was fine. Okay, thanks for your time, Rob. So we're getting a few questions coming in on the Q&A. Before we go to that, Rob, is there anything? So you covered all that. Perfect. So Q&A. It is 8:55. Let's do the random prize draw. And if you've got any questions you want answering, stick them in the chat and we'll get to you. Thank you very much to Extreme, Simbi Suits, Visionary, and SunPath. So let me just find the random number generator. Here it is. Why does it hide that from me? Okay, so we've got 49 people. Hang on. 49 people in the class. And the first name is number 34. Haha, that was me doing a test. Going to run that one again. Number 12. Chris Sears, you get first choice. Number 42, Karen Collins, second choice. Number 37, Mindaugas Casalinas, you get third choice, buddy. Fourth choice is, we've had 12 already. Bloody hell, Chris. Number 3, Stephanie Stillanu, you get fourth choice. I'm just going to run a couple of spares. 29. Fifth choice, Barbara Glore. 10, 26, Paul Flood, you get sixth choice. Sweet. Back in the room. Okay, Q&A coming in. So I've got a few questions that I've just scribbled down that were coming in, Rob. When you say getting in the serial number, you just ring up the manufacturer or you'd email them and they'd get back to you pretty quickly within 24 hours or so, or how does it work?
Yeah, for the most part. So if I consider that I've got a counterpart over in the US that looks after South and North America, I pretty much do everywhere else. So there's two of us. If I'm on the road, it makes it a little bit difficult for me to log into HQ with our server. But if I'm at home or I do have a solid connection, then yeah, within 24 hours, and I'd probably prefer, as well as my counterpart, we'd probably prefer emails. So either rob@sunpath.com or tony@sunpath.com. We can probably put them in the notes as well. It's the easiest way. If you call, you're kind of putting us under pressure then to have a telephone in the hand, getting to the right person, if they're at work, and then being able to use the software to be able to find that serial number and give you that information.
Cool, thanks, Rob. Just quickly, I forgot, guys, we're going to do a group photo at the start of the Q&A. So if you can all put your t-shirts on, if you all could give me a quick smile, going to do a quick, just going to do a quick screenshot now of page 1. So 3, 2, 1, smile, perfect, done. And now we're just going to do a screenshot of page 2. Sorry that some of you are holding poses for ages. 3, 2, 1, yeah. I look like an idiot in those, perfect. Okay, question 2 we had was Mikhail Baskov. He was asking about how much is it not recommended of jumping a canopy outside the range on the manufacturer's recommendations?
So, Mikhail, if I saw correctly, I think you put on there that you were jumping a 210 in a J4.
His friend is.
Yeah. So that J4 is made for a 190. You're jumping a 210. Now, if you put too large a canopy into the container that you have, at some point you could, I'm not saying you will, but you could jam. It could just be too tight. You're talking a large canopy that you're fitting into a container that isn't made for that size, and you have other parts in there as well. So it may make the opening harder. It may make it more unreliable is not the word I'm looking for. Unpredictable. It could just, because it's not built to specifications that container is built for. So you're not doing it as we've tried and tested these containers to work according to the canopies that we put into that container for that size. So we don't recommend it. There's a reason why we don't recommend it. So you shouldn't be doing it. That answer your question?
Cool. And the question from Chris Holland is, how do you know if a harness is too big or too small?
Chris, we did talk about this beforehand when we did our, when Brian and I did our little pre-run beforehand, and he did ask if I was going to stand up and get a bottle and put the container on them. And I did think that a webinar was exactly that, to have. It may be a little bit difficult to bring over exactly on how it fits, whether it's too big or too small. Too small. There's different grades of too small or too large. I don't want to take too much time up there. Too small is when I can't get in it. So, for example, my wife's container, I can't physically get into it. If I did squeeze myself in there, I would notice it is not comfortable enough for me to want to jump onto it. So we have the same extreme with that side on the too large in there as well. When I've got it on, I've tightened it up, but the container is touching both sides. I don't have any space in between. I've done my leg straps up and there's still room to get my hands in there. When we start moving in from that to slightly too small or slightly too large, with every container, there is a little give that's in there. So what I'm trying to say is very difficult for me to give tips or to be able to provide information on an answer that you're wanting without being able to see that container in front of my eyes and have it on a person for me to be able to judge if it's too small or too large. So that was a politician's answer of, I don't know.
Rob, are you going to be in the UK or anywhere this summer where we could get a hands-on demonstration of this?
Yes. So I am with you in Clatterby in August, and then September I'll be at Hibblestow at Leslie's Big Way Camp. Sorry, drop that in there. And at Langaboogie.
Langaboogie 2 in September, perfect.
Yeah, if it still carries on. And there I'd be happy to do it, but please understand, it's hard for me to be able to talk that through. Even on a webcam, even if I did have someone in front of me, it makes it a little bit too difficult for me to be able to point out exactly what is too big and what's too small, because we do have that little bit of a margin where it's jumpable before it gets dangerous, let's put it that way.
Okay. I think we're going to start wrapping it up there, guys. There is, if you stick some questions in, we might get to them after this, but I know people do want to leave on time. So conclusion, and we are a couple minutes late already, sorry. Conclusion, thank you to you all for attending, for being here, for supporting us and for supporting Trees for the Future. We really do appreciate it. If you didn't catch it earlier, you can contact Rob using rob@sunpath.com. I'm at briancumming.com, and you can hear my good jokes, my bad jokes on my podcast at Radio Skydive UK, where we interview amazing skydivers, but not Rob, at least not yet. Episode 71 was out last week. It featured Laura Hampton and Chris Cook as guest hosts and interviews with Dan BC, Mark Kirkby, the guy who's won more medals at World Championships than anybody else, and he was born in the UK, but no one knows about him because he moved to America just after Sunday jump. Dieter Kirsch, they all talked about getting back to jumping in the US and in Germany. I actually think the first 90 seconds of episode 71 is hilarious. But then I would say that, wouldn't I? You'll shortly be receiving an email from me asking for feedback. It'll be 5 questions, but only 1 is required. Feel free to skip the other 4 if you want. Feedback really does help me. Thank you so much. On Tuesday or Wednesday, you'll get an email with the class notes, the links to all the videos Rob referenced, and the link to this class so you can watch the Brian and Rob show again and again and again. Next week's class is Safety Hour. It's like Safety Day, but shorter. Myself and Chris Sears from Visionary will be doing our best to compress the essential information you need to get jumping again into 60 minutes. Wish us luck and forgive us if we overrun. With this class, you can sit back on your sofa at home and become a less risky skydiver, less risky to yourself and less risky to everybody else. Who doesn't want to be a better, safer skydiver? And you don't even need your trousers on. 8 p.m. next Monday. The week after that, the 13th of July, I am super excited to be joined by a multiple world champion. With his 4-way team Hayabusa, he has won the indoor and outdoor skydiving world championships at least twice each now. Dennis will be talking all things body position. He says there are 5 things you need to know about the FS body position. You can grab all these classes, both these classes and all the old classes where you got the link for this one. Help us spread the word, please, so we can carry on providing coaching like this. Please tell your friends. Thank you. Thanks again to Rob for his thoughts. Thank you to you for being here. Having gear that fits is super important, and second-hand gear can be a minefield, although it shouldn't be feared. I hope you now feel more confident about a transaction that might involve forking out a couple of grand of your hard-earned cash. I hope you learned something. I hope you had fun. I hope I'll see you next week. Blue skies, folks.
Jump in there. Were you finished, or did I?
Rob, go for it.
Right, just saw a question here. Skydive, are there any sites? To be honest with you, I found that Facebook has some good sites. There's a lot of people on there. If you just type in Skydive for sale in the search bar, you get at least 4 or 5 different sites that you can go on there. Skydive for sale Europe, buy sell skydiving gear. So there's a lot of people that are in there. And I'd just like to mention that pretty sure Brian doesn't give himself enough credit for doing what he does. I've just spent one time talking for less than an hour, and it isn't as easy as you all might think. So, Brian, I don't know how you do this so well, but keep up the good work.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, guys, so that was the end of the class. You are free to go. Thank you very much. Rob and I are going to hang around for a few minutes now, and we're actually going to record a short segment for my podcast. I haven't told Rob. It should be hilarious. And then if you've thought of any more questions during that, we might have time to answer those too. Feel free to stick around. Feel free to head off now. You are super cool for being here. Thank you so much. Cheers, guys.
If these guys, if they stick around,
bye-bye.
If people stick around, are they still on mute? They just stick around and not do anything? Or do you unmute them all?
We'll see how many people there are. If it's chaos, then we won't see how we get on. So, Rob,
so how many people saw me sink slowly and slowly from my seat at least 3 times? I was trying very hard.
Oh, Rob, hang on. I lost you.
I kept sinking away. If I put my feet behind me, they kick the lever to make the seat go down. It's really hard to crouch while with the other hand trying to fiddle to get that seat back up.
Brilliant.